keep it alive through these lines I write. I keep it live cause I thrive. I might just blow your mind tonight. I'm so hyped, but it's no hype. From this height, it's direct hits on sight. I'm your type, lend me your ears to show you that there's something in me. I'm not giving up, I'm standing right here, holding these days hostage. And I'll make this my year. We turning fear into love, and the love's in the air. I love doing this cause nothing compares. Nothing can share that same type of feeling when you feeling them flares. They can't catch it, it's havoc. I rip to a tear, switch the scenario. My stereos, I leave them impaired. Variables start to change and they're all in my range. I just gotta grab it, it's all mathematics. Every step is drastic, I make it fantastic. I'm trying to take your breath away. Asthmatic.
This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo. This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo.
Yeah, just nod your head with it, so explicit and vivid. Every image is intricate, intimate. I put my all into it, no scrimmage and no rules. I'm a pro tool, hear my heartbeat, beat into the vocals. I'm so loco, lost my mind, oh no. It's ponderoso, dope, so no overdose, cause it's dope, yo. Man, this is house grown, mixed with some milestones. So I let the style flow down like the Dow Jones, bringing it with some foul tones, letting the crowd know we getting loud, so it's eardrum rudiments. Yeah, we bring it rude again. Move, little hooligan. Music for tuning in, full time to the 10. I'm on my clock like I told you. I'm doing this for dreams we pursue.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Anti-Media Radio Show. Once again with your host, Nick Bernabe, here on UCY.TV. I'm really happy to be back. Glad to be alive. It is March 2nd, 2016. It's Wednesday, the day after Super Tuesday. What a crazy election night. Can't say it was extremely surprising, though there are some little caveats here that we're going to talk about that show us a little bit of hope here. But the unfortunate news, as we're going to get into here, is that Trump and Hillary Clinton came out on top, so we're going to talk about that. Make sure you catch us here on UCY Monday through Friday, 5 days a week at the same time, at the same place. I'm here Monday and Wednesday with my awesome panel, and SM Gibson is on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and we have Levon on Friday with a little bit of a different show. But we're all under the Anti-Media banner. You could also catch us at theantimedia.org/radio. Make sure you follow us on Facebook, The Anti-Media, all that good stuff. You know where we're at on social media. That's how most of you, the people listening, found us. Anyway, anybody wanting to call in tonight, we got a couple rules as far as how the calls go. If you want to call, the number is 718-717-8296. We don't take calls for the first 15 minutes, but once we start getting into some of these individual news stories, you can call in and make your comments. If you do get on the line, make sure you mute your microphone and you mute or turn off the radio behind you. That way we're not getting feedback, and we don't want to hear that background sound because it messes up our audio. Other than that, when we're ready for you, we'll get to you by your area code. We'll say, hey, caller from 619, area code, you're on the Anti-Media Radio, and then boom, you'll be on. So that's how it goes. Anyway, first let me introduce our panel. We've got the awesome DB Schwartz, my longtime co-host. What's up, bro? How you doing?
Hey, man. Yeah, dude, it was pretty crazy last night. My first time kind of being involved in a Super Tuesday. I went to caucus and was in charge of a ballot box for my precinct and everything, so it was pretty cool.
Hopefully you stuffed the ballot.
No, not at all. It was just a massive youth vote, dude. Just all the young people kept coming in, and they stuck around, too, and threw all these resolutions out, like, we want legalized pot, we want college to be paid for by the state, we want blah, blah, blah. I mean, there were like 12 resolutions or something like that, and they all got passed. Interesting.
So caucusing, I guess that's a really complicated process. Out here in California where I'm located, we don't have that. We have the primary. You go drop your vote in a box, or you go up to the electronic voting machine.
And it's only pre-registered voters, too, in California, so it's not nearly as easy.
Yeah, and I think you have to be like registered for the party. You have to be like registered in each party. So like if you're not registered Republican or Democrat, you have no chance in voting, and so it's kind of one of those things. Except when it comes to the primaries, but when it comes to the general election, anyone can vote type of thing as long as you're registered. That's cool. I guess we could talk about that a little bit here. Let's bring the rest of the panel on. We've got the awesome Jake Anderson on the line. What's up, Jake?
Not much, man. Hanging in there. Just yeah. I have court tomorrow. It's always fun when you got to go to court.
Awesome. Is that why you're sounding so optimistic tonight?
Yes, it is, because I have an unshakable, unflappable faith in the criminal justice system in this country.
Now,
always use cash.
Yeah.
Are you going to claim the affluenza plea, or?
Yeah, I'm actually going to go in with a F the police shirt on and wink at the judge periodically and see what happens.
There
You're
go.
so baller you can't serve.
Pull the old Cheech and Chong.
It's not jury duty, dude. It's a stupid traffic infraction that I have to deal with. But anyway, yeah, with the the election and everything, I think we're years from now we'll look back upon this campaign as the official splintering the shattering of the Republican Party and the splintering of the Democratic Party. Because I think Bernie, I don't think he can win, but I think when he gets up to the northern states, some of those states that are winner take all. Oh wait, no, the Democratic side doesn't have winner take all, but he's going to do much better in the northern states, and he's going to continue to inspire his base. As DB can attest to, they are very passionate, and most of them probably will end up supporting Hillary if she's the eventual nominee. But
Not from what I've seen up here, though.
yeah, no, it could very well be. They could very well not. But my point is that I think we are definitely seeing the bifurcation of the Democratic Party, and that's good because there needs to be an actual leftist side to the Democratic Party. But yeah, anyway, that's my initial take right now.
I'm not sure we need a cruise, though, that far to the right.
I'm not sure we need a cruise in any aspect of anything.
No, I don't. I mean, the Democratic Party right now is moderate to right. I mean, that's not even. It doesn't even come onto the radar of like what leftists would actually believe in.
Yeah, the only actual left-leaning, the actual left-wing political party in the United States, at least that's relatively, big, is the Green Party. The Green Party is firmly over to the left. The Democratic Party is what we would call socially liberal. But when it comes to empire, when it comes to foreign policy, I mean, you take away, we mentioned this in the last show, you take away the social issues from Hillary Clinton and you got George Bush. I mean, that's all it is. I mean, it's strictly.
You take away immigration, and Trump is more liberal than Hillary. He's more moderate on Israel. He's against the war in Iraq. He's against TPP. I mean, it's just unbelievable. This is going to be the weirdest general election in history.
Yeah, and the thing that's also funny is that Trump was like a Democrat for most of his life, and right. Hillary Clinton, her career started out as a Republican. She was a Goldwater girl, as DP has brought up last show.
And what's with Christie and his complete groveling and standing in the background, looking like he's sweating in his own skin?
I think Trump and Christie had a oily, sweaty, naked wrestling match, and Trump won and put his foot on Christie's throat and said, "You're my slave now."
I don't want to get into I don't want to stoop to Rubio's level and start talking about how people look, but I think that Christie was standing back there and he thought Trump's hair was cotton candy, and he was thinking about.
He was getting a little hungry.
Yeah, I don't want to stoop to that level. There's plenty of things we could talk about without insulting Donald Trump's spray tan. You know what I mean? I mean, and his little hands. I mean, let's leave that up to Rubio. Let's leave that up to the serious people here that are actually running presidential campaigns. You know what I mean? We're not going to stoop to that level.
Leave it up to a guy who would know about small hands.
Well, and Christie, like 6 papers in New Jersey have called for him to resign now. So, I mean, he's basically committed political suicide in New Jersey just for the chance of being probably a cabinet member. He probably already has that shored up with Trump. I doubt it's a Veep, but I'm sure he has a cabinet position locked up.
I've been reading AG is what he'd been offered.
So while we're on Trump, we're going to stick to Trump here, and then we're going to shift over to the Clinton campaign. Claire actually brought this story to my attention, so I want to bring her into this conversation because this one is pretty hilarious. And the funny thing is that we actually covered this, I think it was a week or two ago, and it was one of the most viral stories in the world for a couple of days. The story I'm referring to a couple of weeks ago is the one about how the Canadian island is opening up their arms to Americans that want to expatriate if Trump wins the election. Now we have an article up on the anti-media called, the title of the article is Google searches for how can I move to Canada spiked over 1,000% following Super Tuesday. So, people, and the thing is that people are attributing this solely to Trump. But I've said this to people that know me, is that I'm actually more afraid of Hillary Clinton becoming president, and I'm more serious about leaving the United States if Hillary becomes president. Now, again, I don't like Trump at all, and I think that he's going to do a horrible job as well. And I would definitely contemplate leaving the country if Trump becomes, gets the nomination and becomes the president. But also, I think the same about Hillary. But Claire, you brought this up to me. What do you think about this stuff?
Well, I kind of waver back and forth from hour to hour between who is more frightening, either Hillary or Trump. And it seems inevitable that it's going to be one of them who's going to be president. And Canada and Mexico are both looking better and better by the day. And it looks like a whole bunch of people in this country kind of agree with that thought. I can't blame them. I mean, this is crazy. It's one war hawk and one crazy xenophobe, and this is not like a lesser of two evils sort of case. I mean, this is really insane.
You know what, though? At what point are people going to realize they're complicit in this? Like, our thirst for material possessions and the lifestyle that we've codified, all the cars and the things we want, it's all enabled this system to be constructed the way it is. The shallowness, the patriotism, our villainization of intellectualism, everything about the American dream has allowed this kind of dichotomy to arise. And I just don't, when people say I'm going to move to Canada, it's like, what good? Because if you're not going to stay here and fight and try and change, help change things, what are you going to do in Canada? Canada's just as their government's just as corrupt as the American government.
Yeah, I agree, and that's definitely a valid point, of course. I just think that, when it comes to materialism, if you've heard Trump supporters, the ones who aren't xenophobes, they admire his money, which I don't even know where to start with that. It's so shallow and so vapid of a campaign. There is nothing going for it. He released his 7-point health care plan today, and it's so poorly written that some of it you kind of have to guess what it is that he's hinting at. This is a really scary prospect.
Yeah, when you're releasing a comprehensive healthcare plan and it's like 2 pages long, you got to start wondering, okay, well, is this a serious proposal or his
only healthcare point, the only real point he makes is that he wants to break down state lines, and he doesn't even explain how he would do that.
Well, the thing is though is that this story it was one of our better performing stories today. It was one of the top. I was looking at some of the viral news charts and stuff. This story was one of the top most viral stories in the country, and obviously a lot of people are searching Google. When Claire put out her story about that Canadian island, it was one of the most viral stories in the world. So this is really resonating with people. People are really concerned about this election, and that it may be, very much the most. I guess the most consequential election in a long time. And I think people are taking it starting to get kind of serious about the prospect of Trump. Now, here's the predicament that I see here with the Republican stuff is that outside of Trump and as let's not mince any words here. Trump is a demagogue. I mean, by definition, Trump is a demagogue. You know what I mean? But what are the other options? I mean, Rand Paul already dropped out of the race. He was like the only guy that was actually spoke any little bit of sense.
I mean, what are the other options? Cruz, Rubio. I mean, these guys are even worse. I mean, they're not as the rhetoric isn't as extreme, and it's not as incendiary, and they're not as patently obvious demagogues as Trump is. But in the end, I mean, at least with Trump, you know, there's a chance that he's not going to start the next world war or, you know, do these horrible things. With these other guys like Rubio, especially, I mean, it's guaranteed, you know. And so with the Republicans, I mean, we're kind of stuck with Trump, and there's no other option on that end of things. When you look over at the Democratic Party, I mean, Hillary Clinton is just as bad as any Republican, if not worse. But at least for the Democrats, they have an option in Bernie Sanders. And Bernie Sanders, he's not perfect by any means, but by God, he's a lot better than Hillary Clinton. And at least people have that option. But you look at Texas, you look at these big voting states, you look at the majority of the people that voted, they're supporting Hillary Clinton. I mean, this is really, really like, I mean, it's
so strange.
As Jake was saying, man, I mean, this is really the government that people deserve, I think. People really are, you know, buying into this fascism versus, I don't know what you would call Hillary Clinton, social fascist. I mean, I don't know what you would call that, but, you know, people are buying into this stuff and they're voting for it in high numbers. So, you know, sometimes you got to wonder, I mean, is it the government taking advantage of us, or is it people just so goddamn dumb or just so, maybe they're just so brainwashed that they're into supporting this crap? I mean, I don't know what it is. I mean, Claire, what do you think?
I'm dumbfounded. I think you're right. I think this is the government that we deserve at this point. This is what we get for people not paying attention and going off of, you know, platform claims without actually investigating the candidates they vote for and without actually investigating the issues and what these people stand for. This is the ultimate, I think this, I don't know. I have the feeling this might be the downfall of a lot of things, no matter what the outcome is, no matter who's elected.
What's great is that the Republican Party is finally reaping the harvest of their just insane platforms over the last 20 years. I mean, I was just listening to some commentary that I think nailed it, which is that even though they were acting as if Obama was like a leftist president, even though everyone knows he was moderate to right. And even in spite of that, the Republicans played to the right of that on every single issue. So what you're left with after that is a party of extremists and obstructionists. And now they're reaping the harvest from that, which is that the voters are furious with them. And they'd rather, and the Republican voters are so sick of their party that they're gonna vote in an autocrat, you know, fascist. And you know, unfortunately for Trump supporters, they're going to realize that what happened to Obama is going to happen to Trump, which is that he's not going to be able to actually get done anything that he's saying because our government doesn't function anymore. And
you know, you got to sit back and it boggles my mind, because from the moment Trump declared his candidacy, I wrote it off as a joke. It's never going to happen. Now that the reality is setting in that it pretty much is highly likely. And for me to sit here and look at Trump and say, well, shit, he's the least worst of the bunch. You know what I mean? It's like we're talking about a guy that is very fascistic leanings here, and he's not as bad as the rest of them. I mean, to me, this just it's mind blowing to see how far that our politics in the United States have stooped.
I don't know that that's true, that he is the least dangerous, because the thing that I've noticed is that he feeds off of, you know, the kind of popularity contest. And we have all admitted that really it's his followers that are more dangerous than he is, but he listens to them and he feeds off of them. So if he gets in office and is feeding off of these insane people who are following him, then we really could be in trouble.
Right. What Trump really likes is winning and popularity. And right now, it's the crude reality that the number I heard was that 70% of Trump supporters support a ban on Muslims entering the country. I mean, that is stunning. That is shocking. That's all you need to know.
It's just textbook demagoguery, and people are buying right into it. We've gone into it in the last few shows. I don't want to go too deep, but besides all the rhetoric, the Republican, it's the Republican rhetoric that they've been going on for the last who knows how long. And keep in mind that most of the Republican rhetoric, it's in name only. It's not actual legitimate rhetoric. I mean, when it comes down to the stuff like the TPP, when it comes down to foreign policy, when it comes down to starting wars, when it comes down to continuing the empire, when it comes down to the transfer of wealth from the working to the upper class, that's all bipartisan stuff. Obama, the Democrats, the Republicans, for the most part, they all agree on all that stuff. And then it's like these social issues that become wedge issues like abortion and gay rights and this kind of thing that is the only thing that they really disagree on. That's where they fight their battles, and it's like, oh, well, Obama's such a left winger. Look at him; he's giving gay rights and this, that, and the other, and abortion and that, and this, that, and the other thing. All that rhetoric is now come home to roost in the form of Trump. But also the other thing is that the economy, the economic insecurity that's permeating throughout the white middle class it's you can't deny that, and that's also what gives rise to Trump and Sanders. Is they're looking for someone with a different economic plan. And if you look at Trump, he's very much a kind of nationalistic, protectionist, very much an isolationist on economics. At least that's what he's been saying lately with the trade comments and building the wall and punishing all these countries regarding the trade deficits and all that stuff. And Bernie Sanders is pretty much in a very similar vein economically as Trump is, although he has a lot of different issues when it comes to social policy and that kind of thing. But you gotta keep in mind that it's not just the rhetoric and it's not just Trump being slick, and it's not just people being excited about Bernie Sanders. I mean, there's underlying factors here which mostly have to do with economics, and people in this country are worried about their livelihoods and their standard of living, and rightly so. I mean, the middle class, as Bernie Sanders says repeatedly, is disappearing. It's shrinking at the fastest rate since for a long time, and so this is why these candidates are showing viability. This is why Bernie Sanders won 4 states in Super Tuesday, which you may not know of if you're watching TV because hardly anyone talked about it. Bernie Sanders won 4 states. Hillary Clinton won 7. Yeah, she won the bigger states like Texas and stuff. But, Sanders isn't out of this yet. And so, at least the Democrats have an option.
He's lining up similar to Obama, in 2008.
Yeah, he is. He is.
Except that he doesn't have anywhere near the African American support that Obama has. I mean, Bernie's getting pummeled in the African American vote,
which is really sad too, because Hillary Clinton somehow, I guess, because her husband somehow connected with the African American community. But in the end, his policies were detrimental to the community.
But she's so dismissive of BLM. I can't imagine if the youth vote actually would even show up. They would carry Bernie too, I'm sure.
That's the thing. I think it's a lot of the older African American vote that is turning out for Hillary Clinton. I think the youth aren't really turning out the vote because the youth are disillusioned with the voting process, and you can't blame them for that. I'm one of them. I'm not planning on voting, and I have my reasons, and I have plenty of people out there do.
Yeah, in one of those states, she won 96% of the non-youth black vote. 96%.
Staggering numbers.
Yeah, and you're right. It's unbelievable because the Clintons, their brand puts up the pretense of being supporting of the African American community, but the policies they've pushed and their general position of supporting the oligarchy and shredding the middle class and not helping working class people totally hurts the African American community, and it's just really a shame that they don't realize or that they can't seem to understand that Bernie Sanders absolutely represents their values more than Hillary Clinton. But
yeah, man, and Trump has been catching all this flack because he didn't disavow the KKK in this interview with CNN. Later on, he went on Twitter and said, "Hey, I disavow this guy, whatever." It's turned into a big media circus. But in the end, I think looking at the Clinton brand and the Clinton legacy, I think they've done more to uphold white supremacy and to promote neo-slavery with the crime bill that Clinton passed back in the 90s that was supported by Hillary Clinton. this stuff. This is the stuff of neo-slavery that Hillary Clinton was supporting, and the media gives her a pass on it. I mean, the only person briefly talking about this really is Bernie Sanders, and it doesn't get much coverage. But I mean, Hillary Clinton is probably, when it comes to the stuff that she's actually done, let's forget about the rhetoric and the stuff that's being said right now. And now Hillary Clinton has past rhetoric that was really bad too, when she indirectly called young black males super predators and things like that. But her policies and the things that she supported are actually more racist than anything that Trump has done, because Trump hasn't passed any policies. Trump doesn't have a legislation record. He doesn't have a voting record. Hillary Clinton is based on her policy decisions. She's done more damage to the black community than Trump has done and probably ever will do.
Nick, I was just making that point, like literally half an hour ago. I was saying that if you look at her action over words and her body of policies, she has demonstrated more racist tendencies than Trump.
Exactly, and somehow it's like, oh, on New York Times, Hillary Clinton gets her niche with the minority voters. It's like, why? How? Just because you guys say so? I mean, what's causing this?
Part of it is like her connections to the media too. I mean, she is getting like nothing but positive coverage from almost every like major media outlet. It's ridiculous, but it has to do with all of her connections. And I think that people who don't either have the time or don't bother to investigate a little bit about what she stands for and what she has done in the past just won't see it.
Yep, you're right.
And it's staggering too, the reality not on TV, which is she only had 1,000 people show up for her post-caucus victory speech. Bernie had like 15,000 at this capacity-filled place in Michigan. So, the reality on the ground is that she has really rich donors that make her look a lot more popular than she really is.
So, while we're on this topic of Clinton, I want to talk about this thing on Super Tuesday where Bill Clinton showed up in Massachusetts at one of the polling stations. And we're going to talk about this story, and then we're going to take a caller. We got a caller on the line. So let's talk about this first. We got a story on the Anti-Media by Carrie Wedler. And it's about how, a petition was launched now to get Bill Clinton arrested, which we all know isn't going to happen. But overnight, this thing garnered 60,000 signatures. That's huge. That's a very viral petition. It's going to reach 100,000. When it does, it's going to have to be addressed by it's probably going to have to be addressed by either Congress or Obama or one of these guys. But basically, apparently, Bill Clinton showed up at a polling station in Massachusetts, and not only was he kind of like campaigning outside and giving a speech and this, that, and the other, he went inside and he was in there shaking people's hands and this, that, and the other, which I guess, from the outside looking in, it's not that big of a deal, but there's laws in place that say that you can't do that kind of shit. Like, you can't do that because it's getting in the way of the actual voters, and you're not supposed to do that. And so now people are calling for his arrest. I think the majority of people doing that are probably Bernie supporters, and I guess Bernie supporters and probably a bunch of conservatives are teaming up on this to get Clinton arrested here, which is pretty funny. But, DB, what do you make of this, man? This is just another, and keep in mind, Massachusetts was a very, very close race there. I think Hillary Clinton only won by 3 or 4 percentage points.
I believe his presence kind of did swing it. Boston carried her through, and Massachusetts is a huge, huge state, because if he could have pulled that off, he would have had the whole New England mystique wrapped up, and he would have been kind of the populist vote, and people that were intellectuals would have started treating him more seriously. So it's going to have a big, big effect.
So, again, with Clinton, he's kind of immune to prosecution, just like Hillary for the most part. I guess we'll have to see how that turns out with the whole email scandal.
The mayor may eat it, but Clinton, I doubt anything happens to him.
He'll be fine, man, because these guys have all the connections in the world. They get away with whatever in the hell they want to do, illegal. If this was anybody else, what Hillary did in the State Department with the email server, anyone else would be sitting in a prison cell right now. For years, and she's running for president instead, so this is crazy. So it looks like Clinton, according to plenty of photos and videos that I've seen, it pretty much looks like he violated general laws of the election. You're not supposed to campaign within 150 feet of a polling station or interfere with the right to vote. Now, the other thing that was interesting about some of these videos I was watching is that whoever was running that polling station knew the law because they were kicking the Bernie Sanders people out. There was some Bernie Sanders people there with signs, and they were trying to, chant about Bernie Sanders and stuff. They got kicked out, and they told them to move down to a designated zone. But Bill Clinton shows up, and it's like, oh, they roll out the red carpet, and they just let him walk right in. You know what I'm saying? And so, again, you see the favoritism here, and it kind of just goes to show that the system that is being used right now to elect these primary candidates is pretty much a farce, and it's not fair.
American oligarchy right in your face, right there.
Yeah, it is monarchy. Even, I mean, look at it. And so it's it's just a slap in the face to anybody that's out there like kicking, hitting the doing the hard work out there for Bernie Sanders and trying to get the candidate elected that they feel strongly about. To see this stuff happen, it's just yet another slap in the face. I mean, you had Iowa, and then you had the superdelegate thing with New Hampshire, and now you got this thing going off in Massachusetts. And again, no prosecutions, no investigation. I read something from one of the Boston newspapers where they said that the Clinton campaign was gently warned about what he did there, even though he clearly violated state law. He was gently warned about it. Anybody else violates state law, you're going to jail, buddy. You know what I mean? And so there's clearly a tiered system in the American quote unquote justice system where the average Joe gets slapped with jail time for smoking weed. Meanwhile, people break state and federal laws and some of the highest laws in the land, and they get to walk free. They get to run for president.
And as mind-blowing as it is, I myself saw a couple people bother to come to caucus and then vote undecided. And there were people that stood in line and saw Bill Clinton, and then somewhere in their tiny mind something changed. They couldn't figure out which candidate they wanted already by now.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he swayed a lot of them votes. I mean, Bill Clinton is a gifted politician. He is, you watch his speeches and you're like, I like that guy. Even if you hate him, you like him. You know what I mean? And so, very charismatic, very convincing. And he did his thing out there. I don't know how it affected the outcome. But he broke the law, and he should be going and being arrested and tried or charged for it. But he's not going to be. We got a caller on the line. I want to go to the caller here before we move on to the next story. So we have a caller from 832 area code. How's it going? You're on the Anti-Media Radio. Do you want to talk about Super Tuesday, or what do you want to talk about?
Hello.
Hey, you're on. What's up?
Hey, oh my God, this is my first time being on air or being in this type of communal, open conversation. It's like all I have to say is that regarding what you said about all of these huge media outlets, that have a monopoly on air or television and radio transmission, is all of these huge outlets like Telemundo and Univision. I often I'll tune in. I'm Hispanic, and they'll show all these reports. It's like they'll convey. They how would I say this? They make it seem as if the vast majority of us of Hispanic Americans are against Trump, when in fact, at least the vast majority of those in my social group, including myself, are pro-Trump. I thought I'd just get that out there, and what your thoughts and commentaries might be regarding my observation.
Yeah, it's very interesting. The media outlets, they want to speak for groups of people, and by doing that, they think they can kind of control the narrative. And that's definitely something they're doing with Trump, because Trump is a phenomenon, and we've come out pretty strongly against many of the things that Trump has said, while at the same time we've applauded what he's doing with going against the Republican establishment and that kind of thing. And so that's a very interesting phenomenon. But it's very, very easy to tell now. It's become so apparent that the corporate media is literally trying to take down Trump and submarine him at any at literally any opportunity they can. They tried to sink him on CNN with the KKK comments. I really did. I mean, maybe he didn't go far enough to disavow the KKK, but he did later on. I mean, it's now become just another media circus. But very much like how they're saying Trump is just going to do horribly with American Hispanics, is the same way that they're saying that Hillary Clinton is going to do great with all the minority vote. It's like, it's literally kind of like predictive programming where they're just telling people, hey, this is how it is, and this is just how it's going to be, and that's just all there is to it. And by doing that, they actually get people to think that way, and they're like, oh yeah, well, I guess they're right. I'm brown, so I might as well go and just vote for Hillary Clinton. And if it weren't for me being aware of the scenario, that's maybe how I would be feeling right now. But I'm not, thankfully.
That's not to say that a lot of the things that you said openly are not a tad bit offensive, but I mean the bottom line is that words can hurt me a little bit, but it's like the bottom line is the overall outcome. It's like I'm not worried about what someone may think about Latinos. It's like what I'm concerned about first and foremost, more than anything, is the state of the economy. It's like jobs being brought back. I don't care what Trump thinks about Hispanics. It's like I care about jobs coming back.
Do you support the ban on Muslims entering the country?
I'm also Muslim. My wife is Muslim. That's a funny thing. I converted. I attend U of H. Through their MSA program, I became exposed to their faith and religion. I took Shahada. I think it was in 2011.
So you're a Hispanic Muslim and you support Trump?
Correct. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Very interesting. So do you support the ban on Muslims entering the country? What do you think?
I do. I do to an extent because I'm sometimes I'll go to my local masjid every Friday for Juma every Friday, and I'll say this. It's like for my university. Recently, I think a few months ago, there was someone who got arrested because they flew to Syria with the intent to join ISIS forces. There are a lot of people, including the ones who claim to be moderate, amongst some of the people that I've met who are in favor of implementing Sharia law. And I mean, honestly, it's like I feel like I'm strongly opposed to it, because it's like if I lived in a theocratic state like is Iran or how would I say this, or Saudi, it's like I would have never had the opportunity to come to Islam. And so I think that highway should go both ways. It's like I'm pro-Muslim, but I believe that faith is one of those things that should be personal. It shouldn't be imposed by force on a majority.
But
faith
if you're
is a personal
pro-Muslim,
issue. It's not a.
You wouldn't even be able to stay in the country with Trump as president. You'd have to leave.
That's not true. It's like you have checks and balances. It doesn't matter what Trump would say. It's like, I wouldn't be stupid enough to be.
But he would want you to leave the country. He would want you and your wife to leave the country. But you support him?
Yes. I mean, like I support him I support him because I mean, like him wanting to purge every Muslim out of the country is just not feasible. So it's like that I don't even take into consideration.
Yeah, I think that Trump is more. I don't think he said anything about deporting current American Muslims, but he said that he wouldn't let Muslims in, new Muslims in. Hey, caller from 832. Thank you for calling in. Very interesting call. We're gonna move on here. We got another caller on the line. Man, interesting conversation. I mean, again, you're always surprised with this stuff. I mean, it's hard to explain, but like I said, a lot of this stuff comes from the economic insecurity, and that's, right there, that's proof of very much the driver behind the forces behind Trump and Bernie Sanders. So that's something to keep in mind. It's not so much this incendiary rhetoric. I mean, it is in many ways, but a lot of it has to do with economics. I think that's the biggest issue. Now, the other thing that we have to talk about too, and this is where Trump really does not get it. And he does get it in some aspects. He's mentioned the fact that the Iraq war was a failure. He's mentioned that we shouldn't have toppled Gaddafi. Now, I saw his celebration speech yesterday after Super Tuesday, and now he's advocating for basically a no-fly zone in Syria, and he's calling for the Saudis to step in and pretty much take the wheel over there in Syria, and that's pretty much status quo with what the Obama administration has been doing, and that's pretty much what Hillary Clinton has been advocating as well. So now Trump is shifting over to the neocon side of things in foreign policy, just after he impressed us, what was it, a couple weeks ago at the debate when he said Bush lied about Iraq, and we were all impressed. Now he's shifting back over to the neocon right on Syria. But, as the caller was talking about, there are Muslims out there that don't have the best interests in mind, that do want to go fight the holy war and that kind of thing. But we have to remember, if we want to talk about this, and be completely honest, I mean, dude, ISIS is a creation of bad U.S. policies. Al-Qaeda is a creation of bad U.S. policies. Most of the Islamic extremist groups out there right now functioning come from a lot of our the roots of it come from our Cold War policies against the Soviet Union, and us over there toppling governments to take the oil. I mean, that's where these groups come from. So we got to address, if we're going to talk about the problem of radical Islam, we got to understand why radical Islam is being perpetuated throughout the world, and a lot of it has to do with the American empire. And that's where none of these candidates get it right. I mean, maybe Bernie Sanders is a little bit more understanding of that. He's talked about the downfalls of toppling governments. Trump has talked about that briefly. But now, with this whole banning Muslim stuff, it's just too shallow of an idea. It's not going to work. You're not going to stop terrorism by banning Muslims. It's just not going to happen. I mean, if terrorists want to get into the United States, it's very easy to say you're not Muslim. You know what I'm saying? You could just come from the UK and say, hey, I'm not Muslim. Let me in. Okay, you're in. It's just not going to work. I mean, it's not, but it works for pandering in a demagogue type of way. It works for pandering to people that have this insecurity about radical Islam. And yeah, there are radical Islamic terrorists out there, but shit. I mean, like I said, a lot of it is stirred up by the U.S. and Western interests out there taking their oil and overthrowing their governments and creating power vacuums and creating all the recipes to create this mess, and that's what's going on. We got another caller on the line from 708 area code. Thanks for being patient with us. You're live on the Anti-Media Radio. What do you want to talk about? 708, are you there? All right, we're going to have to drop 708. Man. Interesting conversation tonight. I think we have a lot of people listening in. Anyone else wanting to call in, let me pull up the phone number here. It is 718-717-8296. If you call in, keep your microphone muted, keep your radio turned off in the background. You'll be able to listen to the show while you're on the line, and we'll get to you based on your area code. So we'll say, hey, caller from 718, you're on the line, then that's your cue to speak. So if you don't speak, we're going to hang up on you. What else are we going to talk about tonight? So many things. Even more stuff here on Clinton. So you got something that Claire just sent me. I don't know who added this to the document here. I don't know if it was DB or Claire, but I guess we'll go to both of you on this. The DOJ has now granted a Clinton staffer who happens to coincidentally be one of the people that one of the guys that built Hillary Clinton's illegal server in the State Department. They've granted the guy immunity now.
Oh, right. Yeah. That just happened.
Yeah.
Who added that to the document?
Brian Pagliano. So
is
yeah,
that is that indicative of an escalated investigation?
Yeah, you actually can't even process something like legal immunity if you're not going to begin an indictment process.
Exactly. Right. That's what I was thinking, too. This seems like this is really big news and might change a lot of things.
You just have to hope he doesn't get disappeared because he can break it wide open as far as the entire thing.
We got a caller. The caller from 708 is back on the line. Hey, we hear you over there. Just give us a second. We're going to get to you. We're talking about the Hillary Clinton email scandal now. And so, now that they got the staffer getting immunity, I mean, I don't know if they are doing this immunity so that the guy is going to be able to speak and he's going to be able to blow
testify.
I mean, so this could be big, I guess. I mean, it could lead to us starting to find out some more information about why this email server was set up. I mean, this is kind of
because she was running a State Department on the side for profit. I mean, why do you think she's making $225,000 a speech?
So she had the State Department side job, and then she had that Goldman Sachs, speaking side job. Well, how much was she
getting
making?
Back paid, dude. She's getting
Claire,
back paid.
Claire, how much was she making per hour for these speeches?
Oh, I don't even remember. It was so much. I mean, she was making $225,000 on average per speech, but she wasn't even speaking for like an hour, from what I understand. And then, there's Bernie Sanders who made $1,800 for 3 speeches and donated everything to charity when he did. I mean, she's obviously not just giving speeches. This is more than that. Yeah. And, this connection now with her emails and this person getting immunity to basically testify, if she ends up getting indicted or charged in any way, imagine what that does for the election.
Wow,
imagine what a crazy direction that will take.
They need to expedite this so that it can come out before the end of the primary.
And instead, they're saying November now.
Oh God,
that's probably we're gonna have to see how that happens. It probably
this
will
is
happen
needing public pressure. This right here.
I think this stuff isn't going to blow open until the general election, and that's when the Republicans are going to get the door opened up for them. And now Trump throws a wrench into that process. This election it's Hillary Clinton's election to lose, and I think she definitely. The plan was that she was going to lose, and this email thing was going to come, and it was going to blow up right before the election, and she was going to just be unelectable. And then it was going to be, Marco Rubio walks in unopposed, basically. But now that you got Trump in the mix, and Trump is not part of the Republican establishment, Trump, we could talk about Trump all night, but Trump is not part of the plan, and so that throws a wrench into this whole controlled election process where Rubio was going to walk in and just take the election, and Hillary Clinton was going to get, this email scandal was going to blow up right before the votes happen, and then no one's going to vote for her. And so this is going to be really interesting to see how it plays out. We got a caller on the line from 708 area code. What do you think about this whole email mess with Hillary Clinton? What do you think's going on?
Hello?
Yeah, you're there. We have 2 callers from 708, actually.
That's my friend right next to me.
Okay. We're getting a little feedback, so make sure your friend's microphone is muted.
Hold on, let me hang up.
Can you mute your microphone real quick? Sorry about that. Okay, is that better?
No worries. Go ahead. 708. What do you think of all this?
Okay. Yeah, you're saying about the Hillary server scandal, right?
Yeah.
Or what I think about that. Now, my opinion on that one. See, I think a lot of this is a lot of misdirection. I think a lot of things happen for specific reasons, which we do not see at first, but then later there's reasons to them. But I'm not saying this is always the case. I think a lot of it is random chance. But I think a lot of the average Americans fail to see that that ultimately there is hidden agendas, which we need to change. We're basically, a person voting isn't going to change this agenda. I think it is more of a personal mindset change that we have to invoke, more of an inner revolution that we have to spark. Now, what do you think about that?
That's a great point, and I think you're completely right. I think the big problem with these widespread movements is that they're often, they may have noble causes initially, and they may be headed by people with good intentions, but then they get misdirected and they get hijacked or they get let down, which is the case with Obama. Obama swept into office in a wave of populism. Everyone's like, Obama's going to fix it. He's going to end the war. He's going to fix the economy. He's going to do all this stuff. And then he gets into office, and it's like, oh shit, Obama did nothing. He's continued on with more or less with Bush's policies, and all that energy, all that activist support, all that like everybody like, yeah, we're gonna fix all this shit. Very similar to what's going on with Bernie Sanders, maybe in a little bit of a smaller way. It all dissipates after the election. It's like, okay, our guy's in office. Now we can all go back to our regular lives, and we can forget about, you know, all that change and stuff. Obama's gonna handle it all. And then it's like, oh shit, nothing even happened, you know. And that's a great point. I think that the revolution,
right there.
I think the revolution needs to be much more personal. It needs to be every individual needs to have a revolution of consciousness on their own.
Exactly.
And we need to change our ways of first of all, change our spending habits and the way the stuff we spend money on. I think one of the most effective forms of protest would be tax protesting and not paying certain taxes that we know are going towards things that we don't agree with and stuff like that would be, you know, a great way of going about, you know, legitimately protesting from an individual level. Now to the issue of these emails and how they're a misdirection, I actually agree with you pretty much completely on this, because if you look at the mainstream media kind of narrative on these emails, it's focusing in on the superficial stuff. But you know, and it's like, oh well, Hillary broke the law and she did this, that, and the other. But you know, some of the really incriminating stuff that is come out of these emails has not been touched by the media at all. And so some of the stuff that I'm referencing here is the Gaddafi emails and how they literally were like trying to topple Gaddafi for French oil interests, and because he was trying to install an Africa-wide gold-backed currency, which would have threatened the U.S. dollar and would have threatened the euro. So like we're toppling governments over economic interests, which isn't exactly a surprise, but Hillary Clinton was influential. In fact, she was instrumental in that. The other thing here in Libya, especially, one of the emails showed that Hillary Clinton was aware of a genocide taking place by Libyan rebels against black Africans, and she looked the other way. In fact, she kept sending them arms. And so, yeah, I mean, she literally was enabling a small-scale genocide in Libya, and then she had the audacity to go on the debate and say that she was over there preventing genocide. And so, you know, these are things that are like stuff that war crimes are made out of, and the media won't touch it. But then they focus in, and Fox News goes and focuses in on the superficial stuff. Oh, Benghazi, and then again, there's a much deeper rabbit hole to Benghazi, but they only scratch the surface. You know, they scratch the surface.
I'm wondering something, actually, that you just made me think of something. I wonder if maybe what the prosecution, maybe their investigation actually has more to do with the substance of the emails than the server and the physical facts themselves. I mean, that's kind of an open question that really we haven't talked about yet. But it's entirely possible that there's even more in those emails that she looked the other way about that we don't know about, that maybe that's what they're looking into.
Yeah.
Listen, this would be like if Charlie Wilson's War was put out on the air during that time in the 80s. I mean, it's a private war and she got caught.
Yeah, it is. It's very, very, very interesting to see how this all plays out. I mean, I think this is gonna be, you know, again, Trump is the wild card here. If it weren't for Trump, I would say that Hillary Clinton would get torpedoed before the general election, and it was going to be handed over to the Republicans. Now that Trump's in, if Trump becomes a nominee, I think that changes things. And I think Hillary Clinton they strategically may try to take Bernie Sanders as the vice president for Hillary Clinton, and they may try to win it. I mean, this is going to be a very interesting dynamic. The emails, the Trump factor, it's going to make for maybe the most interesting election that anyone on the line right now has ever seen. And so
that's what they're going to have to do.
I have one thing to add here.
Go ahead.
Okay, so you know how Obama promised all these things, and then everyone kind of like bashed him for not going through on all these things that he promised. Now, Bernie Sanders is also equally optimistic, as you made a comparison earlier to him, to Obama. Like, he is promising all these things, and if he's elected, do you think that he will face similar criticism and, you know, kind of basically not be able to follow through on a lot of stuff that he says, and also perpetuate wars and other things? Basically, people think that he could stop like some sort of like inevitable war machine, you know, that he's going to be like our savior. But really, I think he's just another human being like you or me. Like he could do quite a bit. But what do you think? What do you think it's going to like turn out if he does win? That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. I want to bring Jake in on this too in a second here, but this is I think Bernie Sanders is a lot cooler not being elected. I think he's going to be more like a Kucinich type of character where he's got a lot of integrity. He's got a great reputation and stuff if he doesn't get elected. If he does get elected, then he probably will end up more similar to Obama, maybe more like Jimmy Carter, where he's kind of a lame duck, and you're talking about a huge mechanism. The military-industrial complex is probably the single most influential lobby in the world, actually.
And he does represent them to a capacity.
Yeah, and he's been wishy-washy on a lot of things. I mean, he supported the whole stealth fighter jet $1 trillion program because they were building it in Vermont. Yeah, he voted to fund the Iraq War, even though he voted against it, which is cool. But what we're talking about here is a bigger mechanism that goes far beyond typical politics and stuff, and it's kind of like that deep state. There's different things. People call it all kinds of different things. The people that really actually control the switches here for our power system, and it's the deep state. I mean, Jake, you wrote a huge, highly in-depth article on this whole process. I mean, how do you think the deep state would affect the Bernie Sanders presidency?
I'm not sure. I really don't. But I think there'd be probably less military engagements, but we would still be having. I think we would still have a presence in Iraq and Afghanistan. And I think the interesting thing would be it would all be dependent on whether the Democrats have the Senate. If the Democrats have the Senate, I think Bernie Sanders has the liberal fortitude that Obama lacked, that I think he would actually try to push some of these things through. Remember, Obama had a Democratic Senate for his first 2 years, and he didn't use it to his advantage. I think Bernie Sanders would do differently than that. Now, I'm not sure what he would do, and I'm not sure how badly that would tarnish the name of socialism and what he's trying to do. But if he could pass single-payer health care and free education, I'd be in support of both of those. And I think with a democratically controlled Senate, it's possible he could do that. Certainly not probable, but possible.
Yeah.
And the other things like the fight for 15 will be local, and they'll come down to enough of those 223 seats getting replaced, mostly, I hope, with independents and hopefully with the younger people running.
Yeah,
but Nick, to answer your question though, with how the deep state would be affected by it in terms of this, kind of symbiotic relationship between corporations and defense contractors and the government and all that. I don't. It depends how centralized and organized it is. If it's as centralized and organized as conspiracy theorists would have you believe in terms of calling it an actual kind of new world order, then they would they would take Bernie out. That's as simple as that. If it's chaotic and decentralized, which is what I kind of think it is, I think you'll just kind of see just a different kind of military-industrial complex and a different kind of corporatocracy. I don't think Bernie Sanders can't dismantle the corporatocracy, and he can't dismantle the banks, and he can't dismantle the military-industrial complex.
So, and I think you're right, and then it harkens back to what the caller was saying. It comes down to the people changing themselves. You can't rely on some politician to go up there and just swing for the fences for us, because he's going to get shot down, he's going to get lame ducked, he's going to get neutralized. All the money in the country are going to line up against these policies and stuff like that. Even back to what Jake was saying about having a democratically controlled Congress, the Democrats are just as far to the right on almost all issues as the Republicans are: foreign policy, economic policy, all that stuff, except for social issues. So, the Democrats are just as pro-war as the Republicans. DB, finish us out here. We got 1 minute.
I was just going to say, man, if the rank and file military, decide to sway one way or another, they can totally, dictate this election too. People have to remember the veteran poll.
Yeah, and you see both Sanders and Trump. Not only on economics are they kind of similar with the kind of nationalistic type of economics, but they're also more strongly, at least rhetoric-wise, in favor of military and veterans and not putting them in as much in harm's way. So that's another trend we're seeing. Another reason why both of these candidates are kind of popular. So it's another factor to keep in mind as we watch these elections unfold. Florida's the next big state. Anti-Media Radio, 5 days a week, same place, same time. Peace out.